What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shooky from Shook Earth Media, and today we're back with The Last of Us, the 5th episode. I'm excited to be breaking down this episode. We got some big moments. We, of course, got a bloater at the end. We got a lot of zombie action, so as a zombie fan, really happy about it. But as a fan of the original game, there's some things I'm a little bit more mixed on. A couple things that I think were done better originally, and maybe a thing or two that were done better in the TV show version. But if you guys are looking forward to breaking down this episode with me, definitely hit the sub button, and I hope to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. With that, we'll just start breaking into the episode. So we start off the episode with yet another vignette flashback. And this is one of the more interesting parts of the show, I think, is that we get a little bit more backstory on some of the characters that we see in the game. Of course, in the video games, we're not doing this flashback stuff because we're with Joel and Ellie the whole time. So it would be kind of like weird gameplay-wise if it was just like an extended cutscene that you couldn't interact with in any way. So this being a TV show, a linear medium, passive medium, we can explore some of those ideas a little bit deeper. And I think it's interesting to get a backstory of these characters that were introduced at the end of the last week's episode, and Henry and Sam. And I gotta say, the casting for Henry in particular, and Sam's a good actor too, I gotta give it the thumbs up. I think his performance was particularly strong in this episode. So we got some solid acting, and I love the concept here that the people who liberate the resistance against Fedra and everything, there have been all these examples throughout history where the revolutionaries turn out to be just as bad, if not worse, than the people that they rose up against. And I think it's really smart to pull from history in this way. That being said, some of the new stuff in this, new to the show, as opposed to the video game, and it's not in there. The enemies in this portion of the game were kind of like this faceless big bad, and that truck that has run on it kind of did the talking for the enemies, and they were just kind of this faceless entity. And I must admit, I think I prefer that. It feels a lot more oppressive. It feels a lot more chaotic, like a lot less predictable. It feels like a beast is hunting them with this truck. We lose that 100%, and they're trying to add a bit more depth here with Kathleen, who's leading the mercenary group that took over, and we get a lot of her backstory in this episode. I gotta say, I'm not really all that sold by this character here. I don't find her intimidating, so not really that great of a villain. It kind of takes away from the run van being so iconic and everything. So I don't know. I don't find her scary or intimidating. She's definitely a little bit ruthless, of course. You know, she tells these people she's not going to kill them, and then she has other people kill them. But to me, like, that's kind of a weakness, you know? Like, she doesn't do any dirty work herself. She's getting very emotional in this episode and in the previous one. And in a way that could work if she's like unhinged and like can just snap at any moment. But I don't know. I wasn't sold by it. And they try to bring in the humanizing bits later, and I understand what they're going for. It's just I felt no attachment to this character right away, and I don't know. I just found those scenes kind of boring. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but let me know what you guys think. And here we got Henry and Sam getting helped out by this guy, and they are taking refuge in this like rooftop that's hidden for some reason. I'm not sure I really understand how this is 100% like a safe place, because the army's going door to door to find these guys. And at first I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are these two guys so important? They do adequately explain that, I think, later in the episode. But, you know, they got windows up here. This is up above. And, of course, they have to be up above because Henry needs to look around and see when there's an opportunity to go. So it's not like they could be underground. But, like, how is an attic that has windows, how is that hidden? I don't know. I could use a little bit better of an explanation for that. But you know what? Honestly, that is kind of nitpicking. I like being here with Henry and Sam, them, discussing, he's afraid that Sam is scared, and he's trying to put on a brave face to show Sam that he shouldn't be scared. And I love that they start drawing, and they're dealing with the hunger and all that. And here, we're just gonna get into it here. They made Sam deaf in this. The child actor is the character, at least, is deaf, and that's a new thing for the show. I think it's worse with him being deaf. I think they have to do more. It's a handicap, no pun intended, for a character, because you have to do more work to make us feel connected with them. Because if you can't hear them talk, that's an extra barrier. Not that you can't have a great character that doesn't talk. Of course you can. Of course you can. I just think that in terms of efficiency and getting us to really appreciate the bond between Sam and Ellie and stuff like that, it makes him feel like him and his brother are self-contained, and then there's everybody else. So at the end of every conversation, we have to have Henry reiterate to Sam what went on in the conversation, and it's just repetitive. So we're getting information the same way twice. I thought it was going to play into the plot a little bit. I was like, okay, maybe they made him deaf so that they can communicate quietly and use that to be extra stealthy, and it turns out to be an advantage. Maybe it turns out to be a disadvantage when Sam doesn't hear something that he should. They never used the fact that he's deaf. Not that they should have to. It just feels like the change was made without any purpose to it. So that's just my opinion on it, and I think it hurts the episode because, like I said, that bond between Sam and Ellie, it's just not as powerful when they're writing notes back and forth to each other. I don't really I would much rather watch people talking than passing notes in class. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I love the part where Henry puts the paint on Sam's eyes with the superhero thing. That's one of the things that's better. So I said I was going to say there's a couple things that are better. I love that. Like, that was some heartwarming stuff, and I think that was great. And this is also pretty smart here to show that Henry and Sam, of course, they happened upon Joel and Ellie across the street. They were across the street from the shootout. So they didn't just randomly come across Joel and Ellie. They've been tracking them for a bit. So that makes a lot more sense than them just randomly showing up in some high-rise building, right? It did seem pretty far-fetched thinking back on it. So, of course, they had to have an explanation here. So, I love the standoff. I think it's pretty good. I think the acting was great. I love Joel's tone. He's almost like too honest for his own good in this case. He's not a great liar here because he's trying to say, yeah, everything's fine, even though, like, he's clearly about to attack, because that's just the kind of guy he is. But I like the tension in that scene, and then we get it broken here, and again, this is where the bonding stuff would have been better if we could have heard Sam talking a little bit. But then we kind of get a lot of dialogue scenes in a row that kind of serve a similar purpose. So we're setting up the plan. We need an escape plan. We're hinting at Henry's past, why he needs to run away. All that stuff is good. And they touch on parenting. Well, Joel's obviously not really a parent here, but they kind of touch on some of that stuff, and some of that stuff works. I think these conversations are fine. I'm just like, there's another talking scene right after this, and I really could have used an action scene or something exciting to break up the monotony a little bit. So that I don't know. Not that I'm disengaged with these conversations. It's just like pacing wise, it's just like exposition. I could have used a little bit of a little tiny action scene. And here's a situation where Sam isn't really engaged in the conversation, and he has to be reiterated what just happened. So I like the extra backstory. We'll get to that later. Never mind. Here we are breaking into like a mall type of thing, and then we're going underground, and here's another talking scene, like I said, and now my mind is starting to wander, and I'm wondering, like, in these shots, I was like, okay, those are probably extras, right? I mean, that's probably not our actual principal cast. Since you can't see their faces, it's probably not them. This is the type of thing, this is what I mean with the pacing. Like, I'm thinking about that stuff when I should be engaged with the story. But here's a scene, just if you're a fan of the game, you will really appreciate this. If you're not a fan of the game, it'll probably just feel like another stalling exposition scene. So I think this is a fan service scene, and I appreciate it as a fan of the original. However, pacing wise, this would have been a perfect place to have some zombies. You know, I get that we don't. I'm a drama guy at first. You know, I love the drama first and foremost. The conflict between the characters, internal conflict. That's what a story is to me. That being said, I like zombie action too. I'm a zombie fan. We need to see some of that stuff. Of course, they're saving it for the big scene at the end of the episode, but I really could have used some of the, some zombies just to break up the monotony. And this is from the game, this drawing here, Donnie and Ish. And this is a part where they had a lot of potential here. This is one of the small stories that you come across in the original game, where it's one of the most compelling stories, I think, in the game besides the main plot. And it's this guy who was it was a shipwreck, and then he was alone, and then he was surviving underground, and then he wanted to bring people in, and then he created this whole child care thing, and they were teaching people, and they had this whole society, and then it fell apart. And I thought that was a really brilliant story to bring in, but they don't really use it at all, which is unfortunate. But I would have liked to maybe see a little bit more of that, but I would have rather seen that than the stuff we got at the beginning with Kathleen and all that, honestly. Like, I would have been more interested in that. At the end of the day, it doesn't really service the overall plot, so I can understand leaving it out. But it would have been cool if maybe we're surviving together here for a little bit, and, you know, we fight some zombies, and then we learn a little bit more about the area and get little tidbits. That would have been cool. And one thing I forgot to mention is that in that scene earlier with the conference room table, there's a part where Sam and Ellie are laughing, but that felt like it had no payoff because they like practically just met each other. So it didn't feel like that relationship was earned yet. And that laughter, I think, would have meant more if they got to survive together first. I mean, having those action scenes is a bonding thing, even more than it is like just breaking up the pacing. I think having one of those scenes in there, if you survive together with somebody, you save somebody's life, you save somebody they care about, you work together, that immediately builds that bond, you know? So, again, just missed opportunities. I like talking about the comic book. That's, again, another game thing, and that's what we use to pretty much get Sam and Ellie to relate and be friends, the fact that they have that in common, and the endure and survive tagline that they keep repeating. So, again, this is a fan service scene, and I appreciate it. And here we get Henry revealing that he actually was basically collaborating with Fedra to try to protect Sam, and he ended up giving up the leader of the rebel group, who was Kathleen's brother. So the brother was the one who originally was the leader, inspired everybody, and then Kathleen was enraged by her brother's capture and death, I'm assuming. And it's all interesting, but it happened in the past. It doesn't really feel like, we don't know what this guy looks like. We don't know anything about the guy that died. I mean, it's an interesting dilemma. Like, I love the prisoner's dilemma. Like, what do you do in that situation? I think most people would protect their brothers, right? So he would protect the family member that he cares about. Of course, tying into the overall theme of the season, if you have any idea what's coming later, but. I don't know. It didn't, adding the backstory, it's just a little extra. You know, it didn't make or break it for me. But this scene, man, I would have just loved to cut this out. I mean, all the stuff with Kathleen didn't really work for me. And her, like, I need to go away to be sad and my soldiers don't know where I am. Like, nobody would follow this person if she's been this emotional this whole time. You know what? I don't know, man. We don't see her in combat really. We don't see her having a strategy. Like, what about her is so magnetizing as a leader? I mean, even the way she's constantly passive aggressive. She's constantly like berating people. I don't know what the motivation is for the people following her and why they see her as a leader, other than the fact that her brother inspired them first. So I don't know. This stuff is a hard pass for me. And then we get to the sniper scene. This is one of the most intense scenes in the video game, an extremely intense scene. And if you play it on the hardest difficulty, you're gonna be retrying it. It'll probably take you an hour to get through it. This scene, it came off as a whiff at first. So they're getting shot at. And especially in the game, again, if you haven't played the game, you're not going to know this. But in the game, we had lead up to it. We saw writing on the walls that said, keep out, trespassers will be shot, all stuff like that. And that was right after the Ish story arc. So the implication was that the guy who led that group was so disillusioned by the end of the collapse of that society he created that he became the sniper in the buildings shooting. And I thought that was a really powerful story, and we just brushed completely past it, and then they make the sniper just connected with Kathleen's people. So it was really, really disappointing, honestly. So this scene was the biggest disappointment. And there were other guys coming in to attack them at this point. You have to fight off other enemies, and I mean, that's a gameplay thing, but I mean, Joel he just runs straight there, and it's no problem. Like, I don't like what the fuck? What was the point? I don't know. It's a very disappointing scene. But then the rest of it makes up for it. So that's a part of the story that's to me objectively worse than the source material. And then we get they ramp up the intensity for this end part and make it almost better. So we got the run truck bashing through all those cars. That was super cool. And then it crashes into a building. I'm a sucker for stunts and all that destruction. You love to see it. It just feels dumb with all these soldiers behind our characters here. We got Henry, Sam, and Ellie. They're behind the car. And then all the soldiers on the other side of the car just standing there waiting. And Henry gives up their position. Like, I can understand him being the heroic guy, revealing his position, if he wasn't right next to the other people he's trying to save. Like, I don't know. It was just so frustrating, this scene, to me. And then, he does the heroic sacrifice thing, and that was cool, and I appreciate that. And then all hell breaks loose. And this is all new to the show, and it feels kind of unnecessary looking at like from the bigger picture, but just from the micro perspective of watching this scene, it's the coolest part of the episode. So it's kind of hard to complain about, even though, like, does it serve a story purpose to add in a horde here? Not really, but we've been deprived of zombies thus far, so I'm actually 100% down. So we get a massive horde coming out of the ground. And then we get a big-ass bloater. And the bloater was, of course, the thing that they want us to remember most in this episode. So I wasn't sure they were going to do bloaters in this show. That's what these guys are called. The big guys are called bloaters. And in the original, they were throwing spore grenades. So I kind of assumed that they weren't going to do it. But I'm glad that they did. These guys are, of course, a step beyond Clicker, where the fungus is fully surrounding their body. So I love seeing Joel shooting, protecting Ellie. You can see in his face here, Pedro Pascal does a lot of work, subtle work here, to make you know that he gives a shit now. And I think that that's very important. The one thing that felt weird was that they didn't have a single shot, point of view shot from Joel looking through the sights. I could have sworn, like, I was just waiting for that shot. It never happened. I'm like, why not? Maybe they don't want to do because the game, of course, that whole segment is down scope. So maybe they don't want to do it like that. But that it just felt like weird that they didn't, you know? And then we get kind of the fake out where the Kathleen enemy has Henry dead to rights and then gets attacked by a zombie and then gets eaten. And at this point, I'm just like, what was the point of that character, really? And then, like, even the point of not killing Henry right there seems kind of pointless because he dies, obviously, at the end of the episode. But yeah, it's hard to complain about this last 10 minutes here. Pretty much extremely faithful to the source material. And just a quick note, I love how these two guys made fun of the endure and survive slogan, that it's redundant. I believe that's a lot of this is copy paste from the original script, which again, you don't really need to adjust these things. But yeah, this is a scene again where I would have loved it a lot more if Sam was talking, but we already said what we had to say about it. It just doesn't have that same emotional resonance that it could have. But I think it's a nice touch here that Ellie tries a last ditch effort to save him by using her blood as a sort of vaccine, which is a thing that can be done with some diseases where people's blood will have the antibodies that you need. However, I'm overthinking it. I'm Captain Overthinker over here, and I'm just like, okay, but what blood type is Ellie, and is this guy compatible, and is there other infections? And, it's like, but again, she's just doing anything she can to try to save him. It does kind of feel like maybe she should have told Joel about him or taken some preventative measures, but, she is a kid. Even though they've aged her up in this show than as opposed to the game. So it's a little bit harder to excuse for me, especially since she's killed a bunch of zombies at this point. But, it's just a tragic scene. And, I honestly was expecting them to change this ending. I was expecting Henry to survive another couple episodes. I didn't think that they would have him do the final suicide shot that he does in the games, but of course that is the most tragic thing, and that is the point of this arc is just the devastation and just everybody constantly dying all the time. So we really need to get that from this ending here. So it makes sense that they didn't change anything. Now that I think about it in context. I like that they added a funeral scene, especially to contrast with Kathleen before, who said to burn bodies because it didn't take as long. But yeah, of course, keeping that humanity alive, caring for these people, and the I'm sorry note is definitely tragic. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. So overall, I like the episode. I just feel like the Henry and Sam stuff was better originally, and I didn't want. I honestly cut out all the villain stuff. It was really just not what I was hoping for. But other than that, I'm still excited about the show. This is still great, and it's still a good adaptation. So, still gets the recommendation from me until we'll see how they end the season, of course. But with that, it's been your boy Shuggy. No new episode Sunday. We'll be back again the week after, and I hope to see you guys then. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.